He filed for divorce to take half her life. Then the judge paused, frowned, and asked one devastating question. Before we dive into this story, I need to know something. Have you ever watched someone misunderstand you so deeply it changed everything? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if you believe truth has a way of catching up, hit subscribe. Trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. It was a Tuesday, the kind that already felt like it had overstayed its welcome. Claire Bennett stood in the checkout line at Target, staring at the Red Bull's Eye logo like it might explain how her life had ended up here. $37 in her checking account, a cart filled with things she didn't need, and a phone buzzing with a name she hadn't answered in weeks. Ethan. She let it ring. Behind her, a woman argued with a cashier about expired coupons. Somewhere to the left, a kid wailed about wanting Oreos instead of the off-brand cookies his dad had grabbed. The air smelled like popcorn and floor cleaner, familiar and oddly grounding. Claire focused on it because focusing on anything else meant thinking. And thinking hurt. Her phone buzzed again, this time not a call, but a notification. An email. Subject line, petition for dissolution of marriage. Her breath caught. Just a little. Enough to notice. So this was it. Not a conversation. Not a fight. Not even a goodbye shouted across the kitchen. Just paperwork. Cold. Efficient. Filed at 9:02 a.m. on a weekday while she was standing in Target, deciding between generic cereal and the kind Ethan liked. She swallowed and moved forward as the line advanced. 6 months ago, this would have broken her. Now it just felt heavy, like carrying groceries up too many flights of stairs, like something she'd been preparing for without admitting it. Across town, Ethan Bennett sat in his truck outside a Shell gas station, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping him upright. He'd filed. He replayed that fact over and over, waiting for it to feel empowering. Final. Justified. Didn't. Instead, it felt like standing on the edge of a diving board after everyone had already gone inside. Too late to climb down without looking ridiculous. Too scared to jump without knowing how deep the water was. He stared at the gas prices, jaw tight. The radio played some old country song about lost love and bad timing. He shut it off. For years, he'd told himself the same story. I gave more than I got. I disappeared in her shadow. I deserve half. Half the house. Half the savings. Half the life he'd helped build. That was fair, right? His lawyer had nodded when he said it. Friends had nodded too. Over beers, over football games, over casual man. That sucks conversations that never went deeper than surface sympathy. No one asked him how Claire had managed to keep everything together when his hours got cut. Or who paid the bills when his business stalled. Or why she always looked so tired. Ethan hadn't asked either. Claire drove home with the sun glaring through the windshield, her apartment complex coming into view. A beige cluster of buildings with a pool no one used and mailboxes that always jammed. She parked, sat for a moment, then checked her phone again. 3 missed calls. 1 voicemail. She didn't listen. Inside, the apartment was quiet. Too quiet. No hum of the dishwasher. No sports highlights murmuring from the TV. Just the soft click of the door closing behind her and the weight of being alone in a space that was never meant to be permanent. She dropped the Target bags on the counter and leaned forward, palms pressed into laminate. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She'd met Ethan at a 4th of July barbecue. Sparklers, cheap beer, fireworks cracking the sky open. He'd laughed easily back then. So had she. They'd talked about nothing and everything. Road trips, kids' names they liked, the idea of a life that felt solid. Somewhere along the way, solid turned into silent. Claire opened the fridge. Half a carton of eggs. Mustard. Leftover Chinese she didn't remember ordering. She closed it again. The email waited. She opened it this time, scrolling past legal language until one phrase made her chest tighten. Equitable distribution of marital assets. Assets. She laughed. A small, humorless sound that echoed too loudly in the kitchen. If only he knew. She pressed her forehead against the cabinet door, eyes closed. The wood felt cool, steady. unlike everything else. A memory surfaced. Ethan at the kitchen table years ago, head in his hands, saying, "I don't know how we're going to make rent." And her answering, without hesitation, "I've got it." She always had. Ethan pulled into his brother's driveway that night, the porch light already on. He didn't knock, just walked in like he used to. "You good?" his brother asked, not looking up from the TV. Ethan shrugged, grabbed a beer. "Filed today." A pause. Damn. That was it. No follow-up. No questions. They watched the game in silence. Ethan's phone stayed face down on the coffee table. He told himself Claire would fight. She always did. She'd lawyer up, demand what she wanted, play the same quiet chess game she always played, thinking 10 moves ahead. Part of him wanted that. Proof she still cared. Another part wanted to win. What he didn't want, what he refused to imagine, was her giving nothing at all. Claire lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling fan as it clicked unevenly. She thought about the courthouse downtown, the waiting room chairs, the way Ethan would look across the aisle from her. Tight-lipped, defensive, convinced he was right. She thought about the bank statements folded in a folder under her bed, the credit cards she'd maxed out without telling him, the loans she'd taken in her own name. He thought there was money. That was the cruelest part. She turned on her side, pulling the blanket up to her chin like armor. Tomorrow she'd call a lawyer. Tomorrow, she'd start explaining a story she'd spent years hiding. But tonight, she let herself feel it. The exhaustion. The fear. The quiet grief of loving someone who never noticed how much you were carrying. 2 mornings later, Ethan stood outside the courthouse, tie crooked, heart pounding harder than he expected. He told himself this was just paperwork, a formality, but as the heavy doors opened and he stepped inside, the air felt different, cooler, heavier, like something important was about to surface. Across the hall, Claire entered from the opposite side, folder tucked under her arm. She looked smaller than he remembered, thinner. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them moved. He noticed things he hadn't before. The dark circles under her eyes. The way she held that folder like it might fall apart if she loosened her grip. She noticed his jaw set in that familiar way, the one he used when he felt cornered. Something unspoken passed between them. Not anger, not love, expectation. They took seats on opposite sides of the room. The clerk called their names. And as they stood, walking toward a future neither of them fully understood yet, Claire felt it. The certainty that whatever Ethan thought he was about to take wasn't there anymore. And the truth, when it finally came out, was going to change everything. The courthouse smelled like old paper and burnt coffee. Claire noticed that first. How everything important seemed to happen in places that felt tired before you even walked in. The kind of building where the walls had heard too much and stopped caring. She sat on the wooden bench outside courtroom B, hands folded around the folder in her lap. The edges were soft from being opened and closed too many times. She'd memorized the weight of it, the quiet threat inside. Across the hall, Ethan leaned against the wall. Scrolling his phone like this was a dentist appointment he wanted to rush through. His suit didn't quite fit right. The tie was too tight at the neck. He kept adjusting it like it was the reason his chest felt heavy. Neither of them spoke. A clock ticked above the door. Loud. Unforgiving. Claire tried not to look at him, but she could feel him there. The space between them felt charged, like the air before a storm. She focused on her breathing. In. Slow. Just get through this, she told herself. One step at a time. The bailiff opened the door. Bennett, divorce. You're up. Ethan pushed off the wall first. Claire followed. The courtroom was smaller than she expected. Less dramatic. No high ceilings or booming voices. Just a judge's bench, 2 tables, and a few rows of empty seats. The American flag stood in the corner, its fabric slightly faded. They took their places. Ethan sat straight, shoulders back. Ready. He'd rehearsed this in his head. What he deserved, what he'd say if asked. Half. That word kept circling his thoughts like it was a life raft. Half the house. Half the retirement. Half the savings. Simple. Claire placed her folder on the table and rested her hands on top of it. She felt calm in a strange way, like when you've already lost something and the fear is gone, replaced by acceptance. The judge entered. A woman in her late 50s, hair pulled back, glasses low on her nose. She greeted them politely, businesslike. "Let's begin," she said. The clerk read out the case details. Names, dates, marriage length, no kids, assets to be divided. Ethan's lawyer spoke first. He was confident, smooth, talked about fairness, contribution, years invested. Ethan nodded along. This was what he expected. This was the story he'd been telling himself. Then it was Claire's turn. Her lawyer stood, cleared his throat. "Your Honor, before we discuss distribution, we need to address the current financial status of my client." The judge looked up. "Go on." Claire felt her heartbeat in her ears. Her lawyer handed documents to the clerk, who passed them forward. Bank statements, loan records, credit card balances. The judge scanned the pages. Her expression didn't change at first. Then her brow creased slightly. She flipped to the next page. Then another. The room felt smaller. Too quiet. Ethan leaned forward, trying to see. A small knot formed in his stomach. The judge looked up, eyes settling on Claire. "Mrs. Bennett?" she said, calm but direct. "Is this accurate?" Claire swallowed. "Yes, Your Honor." The judge looked back down, then up again. This time she turned to Ethan. "Mr. Bennett," she said, "are you aware that your wife currently has no liquid assets?" The word "no" landed hard. Ethan blinked. "I what?" The judge continued, voice steady. "According to these records, Mrs. Bennett has significant personal debt and a checking balance under $50. The air left his lungs. "That can't be right," he said quickly. "We had savings." The judge raised a hand. "Let me finish." She adjusted her glasses. "It appears that over the last 3 years of the marriage, Mrs. Bennett took out multiple loans in her own name. She also covered shared expenses during periods when household income was reduced." Ethan turned toward Claire. "What is she talking about?" Claire kept her eyes forward. Her hands trembled slightly, but she didn't pull them away from the folder. The judge spoke again. "Mr. Bennett, based on this documentation, your wife has been financially supporting the household beyond her means. At present, there is no half for you to take from her." Silence. It wasn't dramatic. No gasp. No raised voices. Just the sound of something breaking quietly. Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. His face flushed. "That's not..." He stopped. "Tried again. Why didn't you tell me?" Claire finally looked at him. Her voice was soft. "You never asked." That landed harder than anything else. The judge cleared her throat. "Given the circumstances, we'll need to reassess the distribution of assets and debts. This will take time." She set the papers down. "Court is adjourned for today. We'll reconvene next month." The gavel struck. Just like that, it was over. They walked out separately, but the hallway forced them close. There was nowhere else to go. Ethan stopped near the exit, his hands balled into fists. Claire paused too, unsure if she should keep walking. "Claire," he said. She turned. For a moment he didn't look angry, just lost. "You were broke?" he asked, like saying it out loud might make it less real. She nodded once. "I am." "When?" "For a while." "How long is a while?" She exhaled. "Long enough." His jaw tightened. "You let me file for divorce thinking there was money." She didn't flinch. "You filed because you wanted to take something from me." "That's not." "It is," she said gently. "And I didn't stop you." They stood there, the automatic doors sliding open and shut as people passed by. A man in a work uniform. A woman with a stroller. Life moving like nothing had happened. Ethan rubbed a hand over his face. "Why would you do that to yourself?" Claire looked past him, out into the parking lot where the sun reflected off windshields. "Because someone had to keep things together," she said. "And it was always me." He shook his head. "I would have helped." She met his eyes again. "You didn't even know there was a problem." That hurt him more than he expected. "I thought we were a team," he said. "So did I," she replied. "But teams talk." A beat passed. He searched her face, like he was trying to find the woman he thought he knew. The one who always said she was fine. The one who never complained. "You should have told me," he said again, quieter this time. Claire's shoulders slumped just a little. "I know." Another pause. "Are you okay?" he asked, then frowned, like the question surprised even him. She gave a small, tired smile. "I don't know." That was the most honest answer she'd given in years. Outside, the day felt too bright. Claire walked toward her car, the folder tucked under her arm. Each step felt heavier than the last. The truth was out now. There was no taking it back. She unlocked her door and sat behind the wheel, hands resting in her lap. Her reflection stared back from the windshield, older than she felt, but stronger too. She'd survived this long. She could survive what came next. Across the lot, Ethan stood by his truck, not getting in. He watched her for a moment, then turned away. His phone buzzed. A text from his brother. "How'd it go?" Ethan stared at the screen, then typed back. "I don't think I ever knew her." He slid the phone into his pocket. For the first time since filing, the victory he'd imagined felt hollow. There was no rush, no satisfaction, just questions. That night, Claire lay on her couch, the TV on but muted. The room glowed blue from the screen. She hadn't eaten. She wasn't hungry. She thought about the judge's words. "There is no half." It sounded like a sentence, like a judgment on more than money. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "It's Ethan. I didn't know how else to reach you." She stared at it. Another message followed. "We need to talk. Not about court. About us." Her chest tightened. She didn't reply. She turned the phone face down and closed her eyes. Across town, Ethan sat at his kitchen table, staring at the same silence. The house felt different now. Smaller, like it knew something he didn't. He thought about the way Claire had looked in court. Not angry, not smug, just tired. And for the first time, a thought crept in that scared him more than losing half of everything. What if I was wrong? The question stayed with him long after the lights went out. And somewhere between regret and realization, both of them felt it, the shift. The moment when the story they thought they were telling ended. And a harder, deeper one began. The days after court didn't explode. They stretched. Claire expected something louder. Panic, anger, maybe relief. Instead, life moved forward in small, ordinary ways. She went to work. She answered emails. She smiled at coworkers who had no idea her marriage had cracked open under fluorescent lights and legal language. Every morning, she stopped at the same gas station on the way to the office. Same burnt coffee. Same lottery ads taped to the counter. Same man behind her in line every Thursday who always smelled like motor oil. America didn't pause for her heartbreak. And somehow that made it worse. At her desk, Claire opened spreadsheets and closed memories. She told herself this was good. This was control. If she stayed busy, she didn't have to feel the weight pressing against her ribs. She didn't check her phone. Ethan texted once more that week. "Just want to make sure you're okay." She read it. Didn't answer. Denial came easily to her. It always had. It was how she survived. Ethan, on the other hand, couldn't sit still. He drove too much. Aimless loops through neighborhoods that looked like theirs used to. Lawns trimmed just enough. Flags on porches. Kids' bikes left in driveways. He told himself he was angry. That was easier than admitting confusion. At work, he stared at his computer without seeing it. His boss asked if everything was good. Ethan said yes. That word felt automatic now. "Yes, I'm fine. Yes, I've got it. Yes, everything's under control." The lie tasted familiar. At night, he poured a drink and sat in the living room with the TV on, volume low. He kept thinking about the judge's voice. Calm. Certain. There is no half. The phrase followed him. In the shower. In the car. In the quiet moments before sleep. He told himself Claire had exaggerated. That she'd hidden things out of pride, not necessity. That maybe it wasn't as bad as it looked. But the numbers didn't lie. And neither did her face in that courtroom. Claire's lawyer called on Friday. "We'll need more documentation," he said. "Full transparency." Claire stared out her office window at the parking lot below. "I've already given you everything." "I know," he replied. "But this case isn't just about money anymore." She knew what he meant. When she hung up, she closed her eyes. Her chest felt tight, like she'd been holding her breath for years, and her body didn't trust her to let it go. That evening, she stopped by a CVS to pick up a prescription. She stood in line, scrolling through her phone without thinking. A photo popped up in her memories 5 years ago. Ethan at a county fair, holding a funnel cake, powdered sugar all over his shirt. He'd laughed when she took the picture, pretended to bow. She swallowed and locked her phone. That life felt like it belonged to someone else. Ethan showed up at his brother's house again on Sunday. They watched football, shouted at the TV, drank beer. At halftime, his brother glanced over. "You okay, man?" Ethan shrugged. "Yeah." The word didn't convince either of them. "She really that broke?" his brother asked carefully. Ethan stiffened. "I don't know. I mean, maybe, but she should have told me." "Did you ask?" The question hung there. Ethan frowned. "I didn't think I needed to." His brother nodded slowly. "That might be the problem." Ethan stood, walked into the kitchen, stared at the fridge covered in his kids' drawings. He felt like someone had tilted the ground under his feet and he was still trying to adjust. Later, alone in his truck, he opened his phone and typed a message. "I'm not trying to fight you. I just want to understand." He stared at it, deleted it. Denial didn't always look like refusal. Sometimes it looked like hesitation. Claire spent Saturday morning cleaning her apartment. Not because it was dirty, but because movement kept her steady. She scrubbed counters that were already clean. Folded laundry she'd folded the day before. She found the folder again, bank statements, loan papers, the life she'd hidden. She sat on the floor and spread them out. Each page told a story she'd never said out loud. The night she paid the mortgage instead of sleeping. The credit card she opened after his business stalled. The loan she took so he wouldn't feel like he'd failed. She pressed her palm flat against the papers. "I did what I had to," she whispered to the empty room. The room didn't answer. Her phone buzzed. "Ethan." She let it ring. Then it buzzed again. And again. Finally, she picked up. "What?" she asked, not sharp, just tired. He paused. "I need to talk to you." "We already did," she said. "No," he replied. "We didn't. Not really." She leaned back against the couch. "Ethan, I don't have the energy for this." "Please," he said. His voice was lower than she expected. "Just coffee. Somewhere public. If you want to leave, you can." Silence stretched between them. She should say no. That was the smart move. The safe one. But part of her, the part that still carried old habits, felt the pull of unfinished things. "One coffee," she said finally. "That's it." They met at a diner just off the highway. The kind with cracked vinyl booths and laminated menus that smelled faintly of syrup. Claire arrived first. She chose a booth by the window. Ethan walked in a few minutes later. He hesitated when he saw her, like he wasn't sure he was allowed to sit. "You look okay," he said. She nodded. "You too." They ordered coffee. Black for both. Some things didn't change. For a moment, neither spoke. Ethan cleared his throat. "I've been trying to understand how I missed it." She stared into her cup. "Missed what?" "How bad things were," he said. "How much you were carrying." She shrugged. "I didn't advertise it." "I know," he said quickly. "That's what I mean. You never said anything." She looked up. "You never asked." He flinched. "I thought providing was my job," he said. "When I couldn't, I figured you'd tell me." Claire shook her head. "You were already struggling. I wasn't going to pile on. So you let me think everything was fine?" "I let you believe what you needed to believe," she replied. The waitress refilled their cups and walked away. Ethan rubbed his hands together. "I filed because I felt useless. Like you didn't need me." Claire laughed once. Soft, sad. That's what this is about, isn't it? He asked. She studied him, really looked. The tension in his shoulders, the dark under his eyes. I needed you, she said quietly. I just needed you to notice. The words hit him hard. I didn't mean to hurt you, he said. I know, she replied. That doesn't change that you did. They sat in that truth. No shouting, no tears, just the weight of it. After a while, Claire stood. I should go. He nodded. Yeah. She hesitated. This doesn't fix anything. I know, he said, but I'm glad you came. She left before he could say more. The drive home felt longer than usual. Claire replayed the conversation in pieces. His confusion, his regret, the familiar ache of wanting things to be simpler than they were. She pulled into her complex and sat in her car, engine still running. Talking to him hadn't hurt the way she expected. That scared her. Ethan stayed in the booth long after she left. The coffee went cold. He thought about her words. I needed you to notice. The truth settled deep, uncomfortable and sharp. For years, he'd measured the marriage in wins and losses. Who earned more? Who sacrificed more? Who deserved what? He'd never measured attention. He paid the bill and walked out into the afternoon sun. Cars rushed past on the highway. Somewhere, a siren wailed and faded. Life kept moving, but something inside him had slowed. That night, Claire received an email from her lawyer. The court may require mediation before proceeding further. She closed her laptop and stared at the wall. Mediation meant more time, more conversations, more proximity. She told herself it was just process, just another step. Still, her chest tightened. Across town, Ethan lay awake, staring at the ceiling. His phone sat on the nightstand, screen dark. He thought about coffee cooling between them, about all the things he'd assumed instead of asked. He turned on his side, eyes open. Neither of them knew it yet, but denial was cracking. And what waited on the other side of it was going to force them closer than either was ready for. The mediation notice arrived on a Monday morning. Claire read it twice at her kitchen counter, coffee going cold beside her. The words were neutral, clean, almost polite. Mandatory mediation. In person. She set the paper down and stared at the wall. This wasn't court. There would be no judge, no raised bench to hide behind. Just a small room, a table, and Ethan. She told herself it was temporary. One day, a few hours. Still, her stomach tightened. The mediation office sat in a low brick building near downtown, sandwiched between a dentist's office and a tax prep place. The sign out front promised resolution in calm blue letters. Claire arrived early. She always did. Old habit. The waiting room had soft chairs and a water cooler humming in the corner. A landscape painting hung crooked on the wall. Somewhere a printer word. Ethan walked in 10 minutes later. They both stopped when they saw each other. Hey, he said. Hi. That was it. A woman in her 40s stepped out of an office. Claire and Ethan Bennett? They followed her down a short hallway into a room with a round table and 3 chairs. No barriers. No corners. Have a seat, the mediator said. We're just going to talk. Claire chose the chair farthest from the door. Ethan sat across from her. Too close. The mediator smiled, calm and practiced. This isn't about winning. It's about understanding. We'll take breaks if needed. Claire nodded. Ethan did too. They both looked like people bracing for weather. At first, it stayed surface level. Assets, debts, timelines. Claire answered questions clearly. Ethan listened, arms crossed, jaw tight. He asked a few things, mostly logistical. Then the mediator leaned back slightly. I want to understand the dynamic, she said. How decisions were made. Claire hesitated. Ethan glanced at her. She handled most of it, he said. Money, planning. Did you feel comfortable with that? The mediator asked him. Yes, he replied, then paused. I think so. The mediator turned to Claire. And you? Claire took a breath. I didn't want him to worry. Ethan shifted. I would have worried. I know, she said. That's why I didn't tell you. Silence filled the room. The mediator let it sit. She didn't rush them. "Claire," she said gently, "what did it cost you to carry that alone?" Claire stared at the table. The wood grain blurred. "It cost me sleep," she said, "and peace, and eventually, us." Ethan's arms dropped to his sides. The mediator nodded. "Thank you for saying that." She checked the time. "Let's take a short break." They stepped into the hallway. The air felt cooler there. Claire leaned against the wall, eyes closed. She could feel her heartbeat in her throat. Ethan stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets. "I didn't know it was that bad," he said quietly. She didn't open her eyes. "I believe you. That doesn't make it okay," he said. "No," she agreed. "It doesn't." Another pause. "Do you want some water?" he asked. She opened her eyes, surprised. "I'm fine." He nodded, stepped toward the water cooler anyway, filled a cup, and set it on the ledge beside her. Just in case. She watched him walk back to his spot. Something in her chest shifted. Small, unsteady. Back in the room, the conversation deepened. The mediator asked about expectations, about resentment. Ethan spoke more than he had before, about feeling invisible, about pride, about how filing felt like the only way to be heard. Claire listened without interrupting. When it was her turn, she spoke about fear, about responsibility, about believing love meant protection, even if it meant silence. They weren't arguing. They were finally translating. At one point, the mediator asked, "When was the last time you felt like a team?" The question hung heavy. Ethan thought for a moment. "Before my hours got cut," he said. "Before I felt like I was failing." Claire nodded. "Before I felt like I had to save us." The mediator looked between them. Those moments didn't disappear. They were buried. Claire felt tears press behind her eyes. She blinked them away. After hours of talking, the mediator closed her folder. "You've made progress today," she said. "Not toward final numbers, but toward understanding." She stood. "We'll schedule another session." Another. The word landed with weight. They walked out together. Outside, the afternoon sun had softened. Traffic moved steadily on the street. Somewhere, a bus sighed as it stopped. Claire headed toward her car. Ethan followed. "Claire," he said. She turned. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he said. "I just don't want to pretend anymore." She studied him. He looked different, less guarded, more human. "I don't want to pretend either," she said. They stood there, neither moving away. "Can I walk you to your car?" he asked. She hesitated, then nodded. The parking lot was quiet. Leaves skittered across the pavement. At her car, she reached for her keys. He lingered. "You don't have to carry this alone anymore," he said. Her throat tightened. "I don't know how to stop." He nodded. "Maybe we learn." She unlocked the door. For a second, she thought he might say more. He didn't. She got in. He stepped back. As she drove away, she checked the rearview mirror. He was still standing there. That night, Claire cooked a simple dinner. Pasta, jar sauce, nothing fancy. She ate at the counter, thinking about the way Ethan had listened. Really listened. She didn't tell herself it meant anything. She just let the thought exist. Her phone buzzed. A calendar invite from the mediator. Next session, Thursday. Claire sighed. Then, a text. "I'm glad we talked today." She stared at it. After a long moment, she typed back. "Me too." She set the phone down, heart racing. Ethan sat on his couch, phone in hand. Her reply felt like permission. Not for reconciliation, but for honesty. He thought about the water cup, the small acts, the way proximity had stripped away the story he'd been clinging to. He wasn't the victim he'd imagined. Neither was she. Outside, the streetlights flicked on. A neighbor walked their dog. Somewhere, a door slammed. Laughter followed. Life kept moving. And now, so were they. Later, Claire lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. She thought about mediation, about being forced into the same space, about how uncomfortable it was, and how necessary. She rolled onto her side. For the first time in months, Sleep came without a fight. But deep down, she knew something else was coming. Because once the walls start to crack, the truth doesn't stop at the surface. Keeps going. And what waited beneath everything they'd said today was heavier than either of them were ready to face. Have you ever been stuck with someone who made you feel too much? Tell me what happened. I want to hear your story. The second mediation session didn't start with paperwork. It started with silence. Claire and Ethan sat across from each other at the same round table, the same neutral room, the same quiet hum of the air conditioner. Outside, traffic moved along Main Street. Inside, something heavier waited. The mediator looked at them both. Last time we talked about what you carried, she said. Today, I want to talk about why. Claire felt her stomach tighten. Ethan shifted in his chair. This isn't about blame, the mediator continued. It's about patterns. She turned to Claire. You mentioned fear. Tell us more. Claire stared at the table. The surface was smooth, almost too clean. She took a breath. I grew up watching my mom struggle, she said. Bills on the counter, notices on the door. She worked 2 jobs and still came up short. She paused. I promised myself I'd never live like that. Ethan's brow furrowed. He hadn't known this. Not really. So when things got hard, Claire went on. I didn't panic. I just handled it. That's what I learned. The mediator nodded. And you didn't share because? Because if I failed, Claire said quietly, it would mean I broke that promise. Ethan felt something twist in his chest. The mediator turned to him. And you? He hesitated. My dad lost his job when I was a kid, he said. We went from comfortable to counting every dollar. He swallowed. I watched him shut down. I swore I'd never be that man. So when your income dropped? The mediator asked. I pretended it didn't scare me, Ethan said. I told myself it was temporary, that Claire had it under control. He looked at her. I didn't want to see that she was drowning. Claire closed her eyes. The mediator leaned back. You both protected yourselves the only way you knew how, and in doing so, you stopped protecting each other. The words settled deep. After an hour, the mediator suggested a break. Claire stepped outside into the small courtyard behind the building. A few trees offered shade. A bench sat near a patch of grass. She sat, hands clasped, staring at the ground. Ethan followed a minute later. I didn't know about your mom, he said. She nodded. I didn't tell you. I should have asked, he replied. They stood in the quiet, the sounds of the city muffled. There's more, Claire said suddenly. He looked at her. I didn't just take loans for bills, she said. I took them to keep us afloat when you said you'd handle it. His chest tightened. When did I say that? Every time you said, I've got this, she replied. Every time you said, don't worry. He looked away, guilt heavy on his shoulders. How much? He asked. She gave him a number. It knocked the air out of him. Why didn't you stop me? He asked. She shook her head. I didn't want you to feel like you failed. The irony stung. Back inside, the mediator asked them to talk directly to each other, not through her. Ethan went first. I filed for divorce because I thought you didn't need me, he said. I thought you were stronger without me. Claire met his eyes. I was tired of being strong. His voice cracked. I thought taking half would make things even. There was nothing even about what we were doing, she replied. Silence followed. Then Claire spoke again, softer. Do you know what hurt the most? He shook his head. That you never noticed how close I was to breaking, she said. The words landed like a confession. Ethan's eyes burned. I'm sorry. Not loud. Not dramatic. Real. The mediator watched them carefully, then closed her notebook. I think that's enough for today, she said. You've uncovered something important. They walked out together again, but this time, the space between them felt different. He didn't offer to walk her to her car. She didn't need him to. They both needed time. That night, Claire sat on her apartment floor with the folder open again. The papers looked different now, not like shame, but like proof. Proof she survived. She thought about the way Ethan had listened, The way his face changed when he understood. Understanding didn't erase the past, but it softened the edges. Her phone buzzed. A voicemail. She hesitated, then played it. "Claire," Ethan said. His voice sounded tired. "I keep thinking about all the times you said you were fine. I believed you because it was easier than asking more. I'm sorry." She set the phone down and let the tears come. Not loud, not messy, just honest. Ethan sat in his truck outside his house. Engine off, darkness wrapped around him. He replayed the day again and again. The mediator's words, Claire's voice. The number she'd said. He leaned forward, resting his forehead on the steering wheel. For the first time, he saw the marriage clearly. Not as a scoreboard, but as two people afraid of failing. A week passed. No mediation. No court. Just space. Claire worked late one night, the office nearly empty. As she packed up, she felt the familiar ache in her shoulders. She rolled them, sighed. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "I found the old camping photos. The ones from Colorado." She stared at the screen. Another message followed. "You carried everything. Even my fear. I see that now." Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She didn't reply right away. She drove home instead. Radio low, the city lights blurring past. At a red light, she finally typed. "Seeing it doesn't fix it." She sent it. The reply came a minute later. "I know, but I don't want to run from it anymore." Her heart beat faster. That weekend, Claire visited her mom. A small house in a quiet neighborhood. Wind chimes on the porch. They drank coffee at the kitchen table. "You look lighter," her mom said. Claire smiled faintly. "I'm not carrying everything by myself anymore." Her mom reached across the table, squeezed her hand. "Good." Claire thought about that on the drive home. About weight. About release. Ethan cleaned out the garage on Saturday. Old boxes. Old habits. He found a notebook, one he'd kept when his business started. Plans. Dreams. Confidence. He realized when that confidence slipped, so did his attention. He closed the notebook and sat on the concrete floor. This wasn't about money. It never was. Sunday evening, Claire sat on her couch, scrolling mindlessly. The TV played something she wasn't watching. Her phone buzzed again. "Can we talk?" Not to fix anything, just to be honest. She stared at the message. Her chest tightened, not with fear this time, but with possibility. She typed back, "Okay." They agreed to meet the next evening. Neutral ground. A small park by the river where families walked, dogs and joggers passed by. American flags lined the path from a recent holiday. Claire arrived first. She sat on a bench, watching the water move steadily forward. Ethan approached slowly, hands in his pockets. They sat, a careful distance between them. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Ethan said, "I don't want to win anymore." She looked at him. "I just want the truth," he added. "Even if it hurts." Claire nodded. The truth always hurts. They sat in the fading light, the sound of the river steady and patient. And as the sun dipped lower, both of them felt it, the last layer peeling back. Because what came next wasn't about understanding. It was about what the truth would cost them, and whether love could survive it. The park was almost empty when the truth finally broke. The river moved slow and steady, reflecting the orange glow of streetlights. Somewhere nearby, a train horn sounded, long and distant. Claire sat with her hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the water. Ethan sat beside her, close enough to feel, far enough to retreat. "You said you wanted honesty," Claire said. "I do," he replied. "Even if it costs me." She nodded. "Okay." She didn't look at him when she spoke next. "There's a reason I didn't tell you how bad things were," she said. "And it's not just pride." Ethan's shoulders stiffened. "What is it?" Claire swallowed. Her voice stayed calm, but her hands trembled. "Because there was a moment," she said, "when I realized I couldn't rely on you anymore." The words landed hard. He turned toward her. "What do you mean?" She finally looked at him. "The night your business account overdraft. You came home angry. You punched the wall. You said you didn't know who you were anymore. Ethan's face drained of color. I remember, he said quietly. I asked you if we should talk to someone, she continued. A financial planner, a counselor, anyone. He said nothing. And you told me, she said, I don't need help. Ethan closed his eyes. That was the moment, Claire said, when I decided I'd handle it alone, because I was scared of what would happen if I didn't. Silence wrapped around them. I was ashamed, he said finally. I thought if I admitted I needed help, I'd lose everything. So I carried it instead, she said. All of it. He nodded slowly. And I let you. The weight of that settled deep. They walked along the path without speaking. Leaves crunched under their shoes. The night air felt cool against Claire's skin. I thought filing for divorce would give me control, Ethan said after a while. I thought if I took half, I'd prove I wasn't weak. Claire stopped walking. She turned to him. Do you know what that did to me? He shook his head. It confirmed my worst fear, she said. That the moment I couldn't carry everything, you'd try to take what was left. His breath caught. I didn't know, he said. I swear. I believe you, she replied. But belief doesn't erase damage. The words cut clean. They stood there, the space between them filled with regret. I don't think I can do this again, Claire said. I can't go back to carrying us. I don't want you to, he said quickly. I want to change. She looked at him. Change isn't a promise. It's a risk. He nodded. I know. Another pause. Then you need to hear the rest, she said. His stomach dropped. The rest. She took a breath. There was a point where I thought about leaving before you filed. He stared at her. Why didn't you? Because I still loved you, she said. And because I thought love meant staying. The truth settled heavy between them. Ethan felt the ground shift under his feet. I thought you blindsided me, he said. But you were already halfway gone. She nodded. I was tired. Later that night, Ethan drove home alone. Rain started falling, light at first, then heavier. The windshield wipers moved back and forth in steady rhythm. He replayed everything. The wall he punched. The words he dismissed. The silence he mistook for strength. By the time he pulled into his driveway, his hands were shaking. Inside, the house felt empty in a way it never had before. He sat on the edge of the couch and stared at the floor. This wasn't about saving the marriage anymore. It was about facing himself. The next morning, Claire received an email from Ethan's lawyer. Proposed amendment to divorce filing. Her chest tightened as she opened it. Ethan was withdrawing his claim to marital assets. He was asking for no financial compensation, just separation. Her first reaction wasn't relief. It was grief. She called him. Why would you do that? She asked as soon as he answered. Because I finally understand, he said. I can't take from you again. Her voice shook. You think that fixes it? No, he said. I think it's the first honest thing I've done in a long time. She closed her eyes. This feels like goodbye, she said. It might be, he replied. But I don't want it to be another betrayal. They ended the call without resolution. Days passed. Claire moved through them like she was underwater. Work, home, sleep. She thought about the amendment, about Ethan stepping back, about how love sometimes looked like letting go. Her lawyer called. This changes the case, he said. But are you sure this is what you want? Claire didn't answer right away. That night, she sat on her bed and stared at the ceiling. She thought about the woman she'd been. Strong, silent, invisible. She thought about the woman she was becoming. Someone who didn't confuse endurance with love. Ethan sat in his truck outside a counseling office the following week. He hadn't told anyone. Not his brother. Not his friends. He went in alone. When he came out, his eyes were red, his face lighter. For the first time, he wasn't trying to prove anything. He was trying to heal. The final mediation session came sooner than expected. Claire and Ethan sat across from each other one last time. The mediator reviewed the amended filing. This removes financial dispute, she said. but it doesn't remove emotional consequence. Both nodded. I want to ask you something, the mediator said. Not as a professional, but as a person. She looked at Claire. If he had shown up differently sooner, would you still be here? Claire didn't answer right away. I don't know, she said honestly. That's the hardest part. The mediator turned to Ethan. And you? I would have stayed, he said. But I don't get to decide that alone. The mediator closed her folder. Then we're done here. Outside, the sky was gray and heavy. Claire and Ethan stood near the steps. This is where we stop, Ethan said. She nodded. He took a breath. I love you, he said. Enough to let you choose yourself. Her eyes filled. That's the first time you've said that without asking for something back, she replied. He smiled sadly. I know. They stood there for a long moment. Then Claire stepped back. She walked down the steps without looking back. That night, Claire sat alone in her apartment. The quiet pressed in. She opened her laptop and drafted a message to her lawyer. Proceed with separation. Her finger hovered over send. Across town, Ethan lay awake, staring at the dark ceiling. He knew he'd reached the end of what he could control. And for the first time, he didn't fight it. Claire didn't send the email. Not yet. She closed the laptop and pressed her hands together, heart racing. Something inside her wasn't finished. Not anger, not love, truth. And she knew, deep down, that whatever came next would demand more courage than anything before. Because sometimes the breaking point isn't where things end. It's where the real choice begins. Have you ever lost someone because you were too afraid to fight for them? Share your story below. I'm reading every comment. The morning came without answers. Claire woke before her alarm, the gray light of dawn slipping through the blinds. The apartment was still. No traffic yet. No voices. Just the hum of the refrigerator and her own breathing. She lay there, staring at the ceiling. For weeks, she'd been moving forward because she had to. Filing papers. Showing up. Carrying truth like something fragile she didn't want to drop. Now there was nothing forcing her next step. That scared her more than court ever did. She sat up and swung her feet onto the floor. The carpet was cold. Real. Grounding. In the bathroom mirror, she barely recognized herself. Not because she looked different, but because she felt awake in a way she hadn't in years. She brushed her teeth slowly. Made coffee. Sat at the counter without turning on the TV. Silence filled the room. Not the heavy kind. The honest kind. Across town, Ethan woke in his house to the sound of nothing. No notifications. No reminders. No one else moving around. He sat on the edge of the bed, hands resting on his knees, and stayed there for a long time. The counseling office replayed in his mind. The words he'd said out loud for the first time. The things he didn't blame on anyone else anymore. He hadn't gone to fix the marriage. He'd gone to face the man who'd hidden inside it. He showered, dressed, and left the house without turning on the radio. He needed the quiet. Claire took the day off work. She drove with no destination, letting the roads decide. Past strip malls, past school zones, past houses that looked like hers used to. She ended up near the old high school football field. The bleachers were empty, the grass freshly cut. She parked and got out. She walked along the fence, fingers grazing the metal. She remembered Friday nights, the smell of popcorn, the sound of marching bands. Back when the future felt wide open, she sat on the bottom row of the bleachers and let herself think. Not about Ethan, but about herself. About how she learned to survive by becoming necessary. About how strength became a role she couldn't step out of. About how being needed wasn't the same as being loved. The realization didn't come with tears. Came with clarity. Ethan spent the morning sorting through old paperwork. Not financial. Personal. Cards. Notes. Photos. He found one Claire had written years ago, tucked inside a book. I don't say it enough, but I see you. He sat down hard, the note shaking in his hand. He'd spent so long afraid of being unseen that he never noticed when she was the one disappearing. He didn't blame himself anymore, but he didn't excuse himself either. There was a difference now. The afternoon passed slowly. Claire stopped at a diner off Route 9 and ordered soup she barely ate. She watched other people live their normal lives. Families, couples, strangers passing through. She realized something then. No one was coming to save her from this choice. And that was okay. She paid the bill and drove home. That evening, Claire sat on her couch with her laptop open. The email draft was still there. Proceed with separation. She read it once. Then again. Her finger hovered. She thought about everything she'd lost. Then she thought about everything she'd found. Her voice. Her limits. Her worth. She closed the laptop. Not because she was afraid. Because she wasn't ready to decide from pain. She wanted to decide from truth. Ethan stood in his backyard as the sun dipped low. The sky stretched wide, painted orange and soft blue. He'd spent years trying to hold things together by force. Now he stood with nothing in his hands. And for the first time, he didn't feel empty. He felt open. He pulled out his phone. Typed. Deleted. Typed again. Finally, he sent one message. I don't expect anything. But I want you to know I'm choosing honesty, even if it means losing you. He set the phone down without waiting for a reply. Claire read the message an hour later. She didn't respond right away. She stood by her window instead, watching the streetlights come on one by one. She felt the pull of the past, and the weight of the present, and something else. Hope, quiet, cautious, but real. Later that night, both of them lay awake in different houses, staring at different ceilings. No dialogue passed between them. No texts, then no calls, then no answers. Just thought, memory, possibility. For the first time, neither was running. Neither was hiding. They were standing still long enough to see clearly. And somewhere in that stillness, the truth settled into place. Love hadn't failed because it was weak. It had failed because it was scared. And now, with nothing left to protect but honesty itself, the final choice waited. Not in court, not on paper, but in a moment yet to come, one that would ask them both the same question. Are you willing to begin again? Without armor? And the answer, whatever it would be, was about to change everything. The morning it changed didn't feel important. No dramatic sky, no signs. Just a soft Sunday light settling over the neighborhood as Claire stood at her kitchen sink, rinsing a coffee mug she didn't need to wash yet. She'd slept through the night for the first time in months. That alone felt like an answer. She dried her hands and walked into the living room. The apartment looked the same, but it didn't feel temporary anymore. Felt like a place she'd survived in. Place she'd grown. Her phone rested on the coffee table. No new messages. She picked it up anyway. Then quietly she typed, "Can we talk today?" She didn't overthink it. Didn't edit. Didn't delete. She pressed send. Ethan was in the middle of mowing the lawn when his phone buzzed in his pocket. He stopped the mower and checked the screen. Her name. For a moment, he just stood there, heart racing, grass half-cut beneath his feet. He replied with one word. Yes. They agreed to meet that afternoon. No lawyers, no mediator. Just them. They chose the same park by the river. The air smelled like water and warm pavement. Kids rode bikes along the path. A couple sat on a blanket nearby, sharing fries from a paper bag. America in motion. Claire arrived first again. Some habits stayed. She sat on the bench and watched the river move forward without effort. Ethan approached from the path, slower than before. When she looked up, she saw something different in him. Not confidence. Peace. "Hey," he said. "Hey." He didn't sit right away. "You okay?" She nodded. "I am." That surprised them both. He sat. They faced the water, not each other. For a while, neither spoke. This silence wasn't heavy. It was earned. "I didn't send the email," Claire said finally. He didn't ask which one. "I know," he replied. She glanced at him. "How?" "Because if you had," he said, "you wouldn't have asked me here." She smiled faintly. "I don't want to go back to what we were," she said. "I can't." "I don't either," he said quickly. "That version of us, it was built on fear." She nodded. "I won't carry everything again." "You won't," he said. Not if we ever try again. She studied his face. You're not promising. No, he said. I'm choosing. The distinction mattered. They walked along the path, slow, matching each other's pace. I'm in counseling, Ethan said. Not to win you back. To stop running. Claire listened. I learned something, he continued. I thought love meant never letting anyone see you fail. Turns out that's how you lose people. She stopped walking. He stopped too. She turned toward him. I thought love meant enduring anything. Their eyes met. Turns out, she said, that's how you lose yourself. They stood there, the river steady beside them. So what now? He asked. Claire took a breath. Now, she said, we don't rush. We don't pretend. And we don't owe each other anything. He nodded. Okay. And if we try, she added, we try differently. He smiled. That's the only way I know how now. They sat again. Claire rested her hands in her lap. I'm not ready to say forever. I'm not asking for forever, he said. She looked at him. I'm asking for honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. You'll get it, he said. Even when it costs me. That was new. That mattered. The sun dipped lower. The park grew quieter. At one point, Ethan reached out. Not to hold her hand, but to rest it beside hers on the bench. He waited. Claire looked down at the space between them. Then slowly she closed the gap. Their fingers touched. Neither pulled away. The contact was simple, careful, real. She felt it then. Not the rush she used to chase, but something steadier. Trust beginning again. They didn't talk about court. They didn't talk about debt. They talked about normal things. Books they were reading. A show they both liked. A diner that had reopened after closing for years. Life quietly reclaiming space. As the sky turned pink, Claire stood. I should go, she said. He stood too. Can I walk you to your car? He asked. She nodded. This time it didn't feel heavy. At her car, she turned to him. This doesn't erase the past, she said. I know, he replied. And we might still choose different paths, she added. I know, he said again. She smiled. But this feels honest. He smiled back. It is. She opened her door, then paused. Dinner, she said. Sometime. No expectations. His face softened. I'd like that. She got in the car. This time, when she drove away, she didn't check the mirror. She didn't need to. Weeks later, the court date came and went. The separation was amended. Not erased. Redefined. Claire paid down debt slowly, with help this time, not from Ethan, but from allowing herself support. Ethan kept going to counseling. Kept choosing humility over pride. They met for dinner. Then coffee. Then long walks. No promises. Just presence. One evening, months later, they stood in the same Target checkout line where everything once felt like it was falling apart. A kid screamed about goldfish crackers. An elderly couple counted exact change. Claire looked at Ethan and laughed. He looked at her, confused, then laughed too. What? He asked. Nothing, she said. Just thinking how different this feels. He nodded. Yeah. They paid and walked out together, bags in hand. Outside, the night was calm. No big declarations. No dramatic ending. Just two people who had broken, told the truth, and chosen to meet each other again, without armor. And sometimes that's the real victory. Not the loud kind, the lasting one. Do you believe some people are worth the wait, even after everything breaks? Drop a heart in the comments if this story stayed with you. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.